I need you to stop what you are doing, and I need you to actually hear this. Because what is coming through right now is something that I think you have needed to hear for a long time, and nobody has said it to you in the right way yet. Not because the people around you don't care, but because the people around you cannot see what I am seeing right now from where they are standing. They are too close to it. They are at the same level as where you have been, and from that level, the full picture of what is happening is not visible. But there are other people. People who are not at that level. People who are further along. People who have already been through what you are in the middle of right now and who have arrived somewhere on the other side of it. And those people, from where they are standing, from the vantage point of everything they have already built and survived and become, they can see you clearly. And what they are seeing is stopping them in their tracks. You have no idea how many people like that are watching you right now. You have no idea how many people who have genuinely earned the right to be hard to impress are finding themselves impressed by you. Not by your highlight reel, not by your best moments packaged for public consumption, by your actual path, by the specific way you are moving through what you are moving through, by the quality of your commitment to something that is not yet finished, and not yet visible in its full form, and not yet producing the kind of results that would make the watching obvious. They are watching you in the middle of it, and the middle of it is exactly where the real character shows. And yours is showing something that people like this do not see often. Who these people are, okay? Let me be specific about who I mean when I say high status, because I want to make sure we are talking about the same thing. I am not talking about people who are famous for being famous. I am not talking about people who have accumulated followers or surface level visibility or the appearance of success without the substance underneath it. That kind of status is common, and the people who hold it are not hard to impress because they do not have the discernment that comes from actually having built something real. What I am talking about is different. I am talking about people who have done the work, who have been through the seasons of building something from nothing and not knowing if it was going to amount to anything, and continuing anyway, who have sat in the uncertainty of a path that had not yet proven itself and kept moving forward through that uncertainty without guarantee. People who know what that specific experience looks, feels, and costs because they have lived it themselves. These are people in your field or adjacent to it who have arrived somewhere that you can see from where you are, and that you are moving toward whether or not you are always sure of the direction. These are people who have built genuine reputations, genuine bodies of work, genuine lives through genuine process rather than shortcut or performance. And because they have built those things through genuine process, they have a specific kind of radar that people who have not been through that process do not have. They can feel the difference between someone who is on a real path and someone who is performing being on a path. They can sense the difference between work that is coming from something authentic and work that is constructed to produce a particular impression. They have been around enough of both to be almost instantly calibrated to which one they are encountering. And when they encounter the real thing, when they come across someone who is in the actual, unglamorous, uncertain, committed process of building something real, they notice. Because it is rarer than it should be. And it is rarer than most people realize. Because most people, when they encounter difficulty, adjust their behavior for an audience. They perform their struggle. They manage how their journey is being perceived. They make strategic choices about what to show and what to keep private. You have not been doing that. And the people I am talking about can see it from a distance. And it is the thing they cannot look away from. What your path looks like from the outside, I want to spend some time on this because I think it is genuinely the most important piece of information in this entire reading, and I do not want to rush past it. You are inside your own journey. You are living it from the inside, from the ground level, from the place where all you can see is what is directly in front of you and what is directly behind you, and what you still have not managed to figure out. From that vantage point, your path probably looks incomplete, probably looks like a series of efforts that have not yet fully produced what they were supposed to produce. Probably looks like a lot of work for results that feel slower in arriving than they should be. Probably looks, on the hardest days, like evidence that you might be wrong about yourself, about your capacity, about whether what you are trying to build is something that is actually buildable. From the outside, it looks completely different. From the outside, and specifically from the outside, looking through the eyes of someone who has already been through what you are in the middle of your path, looks like something that is coherent in a way that you cannot yet feel from inside it. The steps that feel random and uncertain to you look, from a distance, like they are going somewhere. The work that feels insufficient to you looks, from a distance, like it is accumulating into something. The commitment that sometimes feels like stubbornness or refusal to accept reality looks, from a distance, like the specific quality that separates people who eventually arrive somewhere from people who stop just before the thing becomes what it was always going to become. And there are specific things about how you are moving through this that these people are watching and that they are recognizing because they have seen it before. Not in many people, but in themselves at an earlier stage. And in the handful of other people they have watched over the years who ended up becoming someone significant. There is something about the way you are doing this that is familiar to them in that specific way. And familiarity of that kind, in people who are not easily impressed, is one of the most meaningful forms of recognition you can receive. They are not impressed by your finished product. They are impressed by your process, by the quality of your showing up, by the specific texture of how you are moving through difficulty without it breaking the fundamental integrity of what you are building. The thing they are watching most closely, okay? So I want to get into what specifically is catching these people's attention, because I think being vague about this does you a disservice. It is not one thing. It is a combination of things, and I want to name each one honestly, because I think when you hear them, you are going to recognize that these are not things you have been performing. These are things you have been doing naturally, because they are who you are. And that naturalness, that absence of performance, is actually the first thing on the list. You are not playing to an audience right now. I know that might sound like a small thing, but I promise you it is not. The number of people who are on a path of building something and who are simultaneously managing their public image of being on that path is enormous. It is the default mode for most people in the current landscape. You document it, you frame it, you share the parts that reflect well, and quietly omit the parts that don't. You construct a narrative of your journey that is designed to produce a particular impression in the people watching. And that construction is not malicious, it is just what most people do, because it feels protective, and because it generates the kind of feedback that makes the uncertainty of building something more bearable. But the people I am talking about, the high-status people whose attention is on you right now, they can feel the difference between a constructed journey and a real one in about 30 seconds of observation. And what they are observing in you is real, uncomplicatedly, undeniably, sometimes messily real. And that is the first thing that made them look twice. The second thing is your relationship with setback. This is where people separate themselves more clearly than anywhere else on a path of genuine building. How someone handles the moments when something does not work. When something they put real effort and real hope into does not produce what they needed it to produce. When the timeline extends beyond what they were prepared for. When evidence arrives that a particular approach was wrong and needs to be abandoned, and something different needs to be tried. A lot of people at this point perform resilience. They say the right things about learning and growth and trusting the process. And then they quietly make more conservative choices going forward. They pull back from the edge. They start optimizing for not failing rather than optimizing for actually arriving somewhere. And that shift, subtle as it is visible to people who have the eyes for it. You have not been making that shift. You have been doing something much harder and much rarer. You have been absorbing genuine setback, real disappointment, real redirection, Real moments of not knowing if this is going to work and continuing anyway without shrinking the scope of what you are attempting, without retreating to a smaller version of your goal that would be more comfortable and more defensible and less likely to produce real failure. You are still swinging at the actual thing. And people who have done that themselves, who know what it costs and what it requires, and how many people stop before they arrive, are watching you swing and they are recognizing what they are seeing. They are recognizing someone who is in the actual fight, not the safe version, the actual version. And they cannot look away from that. The third thing is something subtler and harder to articulate, but I am going to try, because I think it is actually the most important one. There is an integrity to how you are doing this, a consistency between who you are publicly and who you are privately, between what you say you value and the choices you actually make when those values are tested, between the version of yourself you present and the version that shows up when things are hard and nobody is watching. And there is no particular reason to show up well, except that it is simply who you are. High status people, people who have genuinely built something over time, know that integrity is the rarest ingredient in anyone's path. And they have gotten very good at sensing its presence or absence very quickly. And in you, they are sensing its presence. Clearly, consistently, in the way you handle things that do not go well, in the way you treat people who cannot do anything for you, in the way you talk about your work and your goals and your vision without overstating or understating what you actually have and where you actually are. There is something honest in you about the gap between where you are and where you are going. And that honesty, that willingness to be in the gap without pretending it, does not exist. Or pretending it is smaller than it is something that people who have integrity themselves recognize immediately. Why you have not felt this okay, I want to address something directly because I think it is important and I think some of you need to hear it addressed before you can actually receive the rest of what I am saying. If what I am describing is true, if there are genuinely high status people observing your path and finding themselves impressed, why have you not felt it? Why does it not match your experience of your own journey? Why, if this recognition is real, are you sitting here in what sometimes feels like obscurity, doing the work without the kind of acknowledgement or momentum or visible evidence of being seen that would make it easier to keep going? And the honest answer is that the kind of observation I am describing does not always make itself known in real time. People who are further along, people who are busy with their own significant work, people who are watching you from a distance, they are not always in a position to signal their recognition to you in a way that reaches you clearly. Their attention is real, but it is not always audible from where you are. They are not necessarily in your direct community. They are not necessarily commenting on what you share, or reaching out, or making their assessment of you visible in a way that would give you feedback. They are watching from a position that has some distance to it. And distance, while it gives them the clarity to see your path in full, also means that what they see does not always transmit back to you in a form you can receive as information. But here is the other part of the answer, and I want to say this carefully because I think it is the more important part. The reason you have not felt this is partly because of where you are placing your attention. You have been so focused on the gap, on the distance between where you are and where you are trying to get to, that you have not been tracking the evidence of what is already happening. You have been measuring yourself against your goal and finding yourself behind schedule. You have been measuring yourself against people who appear to be further along and finding yourself lacking in comparison. You have been measuring yourself against your own expectations of how this should have gone by now and finding the reality insufficient. And all of that measuring, all of that comparison, all of that evaluation of your progress against standards that are either external or premature, it has been taking up the space where the evidence of your actual impact and your actual visibility could otherwise be living. The high status people watching you are not measuring you against your finished destination. They are measuring you against the quality of your process. And by that measure, the only measure that actually tells you something real about whether someone is going to arrive somewhere significant, you are not behind. You are exactly where someone looks when they are about to break through into something real. What they are saying to each other, okay? So let me get into what is actually being communicated between these people, because I think this is the part that is going to feel most significant once it lands. These are not all people who know each other necessarily. Some of them are in overlapping circles, some of them are in completely separate ones. But the assessment is remarkably consistent across all of them, and that consistency is itself meaningful. When people who do not know each other, who have different vantage points and different areas of expertise and different relationships to what you are building, all arrive at a similar impression of you independently, that impression is not constructed or coincidental. It is the organic result of something real in you producing the same recognition in multiple people who have the discernment to recognize it. What they are saying, in various forms, in various contexts, is a version of the same thing. They are saying this person is the real thing, not in the final arrived sense, but in the foundational sense. In the sense of this person has the actual ingredients. The actual work ethic that is not a performance of work ethic, but a genuine relationship with the craft or the building or the becoming. The actual resilience that comes from having been through something that tested it, rather than the resilience that comes from never having been seriously tested. The actual vision that is clear enough to keep someone moving through sustained uncertainty rather than a vague aspiration that sounds good but does not have enough specificity to navigate by. They are saying this is someone to watch, not in the casual social media sense of that phrase, in the genuine sense, in the sense of pay attention to what this person does next, because I think it is going to be something. And some of them, and this is the part I want you to really absorb, some of them are thinking about whether and how to make themselves known to you. Whether there is a moment coming where reaching out would make sense, where offering something a connection, an opportunity, an introduction, a door they have access to that you do not yet would be appropriate. They are not rushing this. People at this level do not rush things. They are deliberate about who they invest their attention and their networks in, because their attention and their networks are genuinely valuable, and they do not distribute them casually. But the thinking is happening, the considering is real, and the direction it is moving in is toward you. The gap in your self-perception, I want to spend some time here, because this is the piece that I think is going to require the most from you, in terms of actually receiving it, and I do not want to move past it too quickly. There is a gap between how you perceive yourself right now and how you are being perceived by the people I have been describing. And this gap is not small. It is actually quite significant, and it is worth understanding why it exists and what it means that it exists. You are perceiving yourself from the inside of your own experience, which means you have access to every doubt you have ever had, every moment when you were not sure this was going to work, every failure that felt definitive at the time, every version of yourself that was less than you wanted to be in a specific moment, every gap between your vision and your current reality, every comparison between your progress and someone else's that did not favor you. You are carrying all of that simultaneously with the forward motion of your path. And the cumulative weight of all of that internal information creates a self-perception that is necessarily more modest and more uncertain and more aware of limitation than the perception someone has of you from the outside, who does not have access to any of that interior landscape. The people watching you from a distance do not see your doubts. They see your decisions. They do not see your fears. They see your actions. They do not see the conversations you have with yourself at 3 a.m. when you are not sure any of this is working. They see what you build and how you build it, and the consistency with which you show up to the building, regardless of what the internal conversation is doing. And from that vantage point, from the vantage point of observable decisions and visible actions and demonstrated consistency over time, you look significantly more formidable than you feel from inside your own experience. That gap is not a problem. That gap is actually information. It is telling you that your internal assessment of yourself is lagging behind the reality of what you have been building. It is telling you that the version of yourself you are operating from, the one that is still accounting for all of the uncertainty and all of the not yet arrived and all of the work that has not yet produced its full fruit, that version is smaller than what you have actually become. And the invitation in this reading, the practical invitation, is to begin closing that gap from the inside, to begin updating your internal assessment of yourself to match the external assessment being made by people whose assessment carries genuine weight, not to become arrogant or to start performing confidence you have not yet fully integrated, but to stop actively underestimating yourself in a way that is no longer accurate and has not been accurate for a while. What this means for what is coming, okay? So let's talk about what this actually produces. Because I do not want to leave this at the level of validation without talking about the practical implications of what I am seeing. The observation of these people, the attention they are paying, the assessments they are making, the considering of how and whether to make themselves known to you. This is not happening in a vacuum that produces no results in your actual life. This is happening in a way that is beginning to generate effects that you are going to start noticing. Some of you have already begun to notice them. Things arriving from unexpected directions. Opportunities surfacing through channels you were not monitoring. People coming into your orbit who feel different from the people who have typically been in your orbit, who seem to have a different relationship to what is possible, who speak about their own paths in ways that feel more aligned with where you are actually trying to go than most of the conversations you have had access to recently. That is not coincidence. That is the beginning of a network shift that is being generated by the attention of people further along the path who are beginning to move in your direction. Not all at once, not with a dramatic announcement, in the quiet, organic, real-world way that these things actually happen when they happen genuinely. Someone mentions your name to someone else. Someone passes along something you created or said or did to a person who has context for understanding its value. Someone opens a door slightly, not dramatically, not with a speech, just cracks it in a way that allows you to see it is there. These are the early movements of something that is building. And the building is going to continue and accelerate as you continue doing what you have been doing. Because here is what I want to be clear about. The thing that is attracting this attention is not a strategy that you can replicate more deliberately or optimize or amplify through better positioning. It is the natural output of you being genuinely on your path with genuine commitment and genuine integrity. And the way to maintain it is simply to continue being on your path the same way you have been on it. The attention of these people is not contingent on you performing anything differently. It is contingent on you continuing to be the version of yourself that caught it in the first place, which is the version you are when you are not thinking about being perceived, which is the version you have been this entire time. What to do with the awareness that you are being watched? I want to address this specifically because I think it is a real and practical concern, and I would be doing you a disservice not to name it. Now that you know this, now that you have some awareness that people further along are watching you, there is a risk. The risk is that this awareness changes how you move, that you start making choices with the audience in mind, that you start optimizing your path for the perception of it rather than for the actual quality of it, that you start performing the qualities that drew the attention in the first place rather than simply having them. And I want to be direct about this risk because it is a real one, and it is the thing that disrupts paths like yours more often than anything else. The moment you start moving for the audience feels it. Not consciously in most cases, but the quality that drew their attention, that uncomplicatedly real, unperformed, genuinely committed quality, that quality changes when it starts being performed rather than lived. And the people who were drawn to it in its natural form are calibrated enough to notice the change even if they cannot name exactly what shifted. So the practical guidance here is to let this reading be information that settles somewhere in you as quiet confidence, rather than as a directive to change your behavior. Let it update your self-perception without changing your movement. Let it give you the internal security that comes from knowing your work is being seen by people whose seeing matters, and then go back to the work. Not for those people, not for their approval or their eventual connection or the doors they might open. For the thing itself, for the actual thing you are building and why you started building it before anyone was watching. That is where the power lives. In the doing of it for the right reason, regardless of who is watching. And the beautiful irony of this reading is that the reason these people are watching is precisely because they can see that you are doing it for the right reason. The moment that changes, the quality that drew them changes with it. So the instruction here is not to perform more consciously what you have been doing naturally. The instruction is to keep doing it naturally. Keep your head down. Keep moving forward. Keep being real about where you are and honest about the gap and committed to closing it through actual work rather than through the management of perception. And let the rest unfold the way it is already unfolding. Because it is already unfolding in your favor, without your management of it. And that is the most significant information in this entire reading. One thing I want to leave you with, okay? Last thing, and I want this to be the thing you carry out of this video and into your actual day. The loneliness of a path like yours is real. The specific loneliness of doing work that has not yet produced its full results. Of being in the middle of something that does not yet look finished from the outside. Of not always having people around you who understand the scope of what you are attempting, or who can reflect back to you an accurate picture of what you are building. That loneliness is real, and it costs something. And I do not want to minimize that by just saying, people are watching, cheer up. I want to acknowledge that the work you have been doing in what has often felt like obscurity has been genuinely difficult. That the absence of clear external signals of progress has made it harder to trust the process. That there have been moments when the most honest thing you could say is, I do not know if this is working, and I do not know how much longer I can sustain this level of commitment without something telling me I am not wrong about myself. You are not wrong about yourself. You were never wrong about yourself. And the people I have been describing in this, reading the people who have earned the right to be hard to impress, and who are finding themselves unable to stop watching you, they are the external confirmation of what was always internally true. That you have something real. That you are on something real. That the path you chose, the commitment you made, the version of yourself you have been working to become it, is not invisible. It is being seen by the right people, from the right distance, with the kind of eyes that know what they are looking at. And what they are looking at is someone who is about to arrive somewhere that the people around you right now may not yet have the vantage point to see you heading. Keep going. Not for them, for the thing. But know that the thing is visible. Know that the becoming is visible. Know that you have not been doing this in the dark, even when it felt like you were. You have been doing it on a stage that is larger than you realized. And the audience on that stage is made up of exactly the kind of people whose attention you would have chosen if you had been given the choice. Drop something in the comments if this landed for you today. Tell me what you are building. Tell me what the path is. Tell me how long you have been in it. Because I want to know who is here for this reading, and I want that comment section to be a space where people who are on real paths find each other. Share this with someone who has been doing the work in silence and needs to hear that the silence does not mean no one is watching. It just means the right ones are watching quietly. And quietly is exactly how the most important recognition tends to arrive.